That's great. Okay, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to History Forge. My name is Taylor Hamlin, and today I'm going to be going over the third week of a year-long PBL project in a U.S. history classroom. Last week we started off with giving the students their new Google Classroom codes. Now, students were already using Google Classroom, however, students were only using it for the year-long projects. Now students are getting new Google Classrooms where they're getting their discussion notes, they're getting their lecture notes, they're also getting activities like online discussions, they're getting homework assignments, daily and weekly kind of things. And so all these students are getting all this work now. And it's good news for us because all the students now have all the materials that they'll need up until December. So in the classroom, my job is becoming more and more of just working with students during interventions, but also kind of just being a person in the room to facilitate information, to help students figure out where to go next. Many students do not need me necessarily anymore to give them the directions, make sure they're following through, because many students are able to do those things. And so with a new Google Classroom, we're doing an excellent job of organizing students and really making sure those year-long PBLs are staying organized and are going to get done. Now last week we also started letting our students go to the library, which was great for us. Our students were able to find research, find articles, talk to the librarian, really learn how to use a librarian, how to give them their information, how they can help you find books not only at our library, but a state library, a community library, or libraries in the another part of the country. So she was really helpful in helping those students find those things. And basically Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I sent students to the library in order to find more materials. The entire point was to split up my class of students of, okay, you guys, you're doing good, you're really far ahead, go to the library now. You guys can work with them. You guys can work with the librarian. And the students that stayed in the classroom, they worked with me. So we worked on, hey, why isn't your topic figured out? How come you're having a hard time making your topic more narrow? What's wrong? You know, we had a lot more time for intervention. And so I was doing interventions last week of like 10 to 12 students, whereas 8 to 10 of my students would go to the library. So we're almost splitting it pretty much in half, letting some students go out into the library to find more information, whereas other students stayed here with me and got some assistance. We also talked a lot more about groups last week. Students are talking to each other, trying to figure out, okay, well, you want to do this, but you also want to do this, and I want to do this, so where do those interests lie? Like, where can we actually work with each other? Some people are finding out that they don't want to work with their friends. They'd rather be an individual. Some people are finding out that their groups are very similar, and so groups are combining. And so we're really trying to push those students to finalize that last week. And this week we'll finally get the groups pretty much ironed out. Most of the students will know who they're going to be with and what the individuals are. Really cool thing too is I used Google Forms in order to figure out like who's doing what. And a new function of Google Forms this year is they actually give you statistics. And so I was getting a pie chart of the 5 different categories, and so I find out exactly what percentage of my class wants to do what kind of project, which is really helpful for me because many of my students, about half, want to do an exhibit, whereas only 5 of my students, so about 1 to 2%, want to do a performance. So clearly we need to focus a lot on the exhibit portion for many students, whereas those other students need to have some more kind of small group interventions with me or somebody else that can find it in the community or the building to help them. Now also last week we really focused on creating specific topics. So we're taking the big idea, the broad topic, and narrowing it down. I use the funnel method to do that. I put the docs down below if you want to know how I did it. But basically we use a funnel idea, so the funnel on top is the broad part, and then we try to narrow it down based off interest. Also based off the notes and the books and the articles and everything else that they have been finding and taking. Students were looking for a lot of information last week, and so many of them found names, events, individuals, dates, all this information in order to find out exactly what they're doing. Overall, the week went really well, but of course, as always, there's going to be some mistakes, so I'll go over those real quick. Number one, we're still having students who are having a hard time accepting that they're going to be doing this project. Year-long projects are something that most students have never done before. I even asked my class at the beginning of the year who's actually done a project for 9 months, and no one raised their hands. It's a brand new thing to think that my work now is going to affect me all the way up until March, April, and May. Many students don't realize that. And so I have to do a lot of work in explaining to some of these students that you have to get some of this work done now. So we probably have about 5 to 10% I would say, who haven't completely bought in. They had high energy in the beginning, but now as the year's wearing on, they're not, I think, seeing that instant gratification. So we are putting in grades each couple weeks in order to figure out, like, okay, well, you didn't do this step very well, so you need to do this step better now. So take what you've learned here and apply it to the next step. And so that will start, I think, building up a little more motivation for some of these students to do. However, we also are going to do interventions. This week, I'm going to really focus on, you 8 to 10 students, you didn't really seem to care. Some of you even told me straight out that you don't care about this project. You also didn't really seem to be very passionate about fixing the world's problems when we did that discussion in the first week. So I'm going to ask these students, what's inhibiting you from wanting to do this? And I'm sure I'm going to get a variety of answers, and I'm sure also I'm still going to have a few that don't care, or at least seem like they don't. But we're going to continue to narrow that scope down of students who are having bigger problems. And as the weeks go on, we'll start giving them more one-on-one attention. We'll start giving them more time with other teachers who are associated with this project. I'm even thinking about bringing other historians and community members to come in and maybe even help coach some of these students who are having a harder time, giving them that one-on-one attention that many of them or most of them want or need. Also, another mistake that happened was I said some students could use the same note-taking sheet, as in they shared a doc with each other and they were all taking notes on that, and that worked well actually for some groups. Many groups kept them organized. It showed them not to overlap each other, so everyone was putting in good notes. But for other groups, many students were taking advantage of that, and so a group of 5, for example, 1 or 2 of them wouldn't do as much as the other 3, and I really couldn't separate which one was doing what. And so next year, or as I continue to do this, I'm going to definitely make sure that they use separate documents online. That way I can easily say, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, but you haven't done much. So you're not, you're not actually helping your group all that much. You need to have a talk with them, or figuring out maybe if they're confused or not, and if I can help them. All right, so now I'm going to show you the calendar for the 3rd week of the year-long PBL project. This is the calendar for September 11th through September 15th. We got a full week this week, although on Friday I do have a meeting with my counselor where he's actually going to come into the classroom and take over. So really we only have 4 days of actual U.S. history content. On Monday, though, we're really going to focus on getting our portfolios checked, getting that done, also doing a history lecture over primary sources. On Tuesday, we're going to have more information on secondary sources, finding secondary sources, and organizing them into an annotated bibliography. Wednesday is the first common assessment. That's just a test that tracks students throughout the year, making sure that they're actually learning something through their U.S. history coursework. And also on Wednesday, we're going to do a secondary source check where I make sure students are actually filling out their documents. And Thursday, we'll do the same thing with annotated bibliographies, where students have to show me that they've actually been building up their materials. And throughout the week, we'll have Google Classroom questions, which are just secondary source questions where students have to come up with some kind of argument and use evidence from a book in order to prove their answer. Now on Monday, you saw that I'm going to do a survey and portfolio check, and it's really pretty simple. First, I'm going to go through and check their portfolios, make sure that they're all updated, so all the materials in the last 3 weeks are in there. And then 2, I'm going to make sure that their surveying of their topic is in there as well, and that's just a Google Doc that I made. I put it in last week's video on the comment section, and I'm just going to make sure that that information is already filled out and through there. Like, the notes are good. The notes are detailed. I feel like that it met the standards of which I talked about last week. And so I'm just going to give that a quick grade, just to make sure the students are aware that I am giving grades for this year-long project as we go. And that's really important. You want to make sure that you're giving them grades at least each week, or giving them some kind of notification of, hey, you're going in this good route, or you're going down this kind of dark and scary route. You need to get back on track and come over here with us. So do those weekly things. Now on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing that How to Find Sources lecture, and the document's pretty simple. All it really is me teaching them how to use good Google searches. So it's really going to focus on Google and using searches in Google. That's it. We're not going to show them any library things. We're not going to show them any websites that have specific primary sources. I'm just going to teach them how to use Google properly, because I know they're going to, and so I want to make sure that they understand how to. And so the document is attached below in the description section. And again, it's just really going over how to use Google, but also making sure the students show me that they can. So they're going to write down a bunch of little Google searches. I check them off, and then they go out and do it and make sure that they take care of it, and hopefully we'll find some good information. Also on Tuesday, I'm going to show them the annotated bibliography doc, and annotated bibliographies are pretty simple. It's just a regular bibliography, really, with descriptions of what that source is. And students are going to have a long time to finish it. In fact, I'm going to give them until September 20th, so from tomorrow, it'll have 9 days. And it's going to be pretty simple. Students are going to already put the stuff they already have in that annotated bib, and they're going to find more information using the Google search conversation I gave them. And next week, we're going to also go to the library to learn how to use their online search catalog. So students are going to learn Google from me and catalogs from the librarian, and between both of us, they should be gathering a lot of secondary sources. As they find sources, they're going to continue to take that big topic and narrow it down. That's the entire point. As you're taking research notes, you're going to continue to find more information, but also you're going to continue to figure out, what am I specifically going to do? How am I going to take this big topic and narrow it down to something that is valuable, hasn't been done before, unique, and something I'm interested in? And pretty much the rest of the week is just going to be Google Classroom questions, teaching them more about actual content. Right now we're on Native American history, so students are learning about pre-European contact Native peoples. Also, we're going to be grading their annotated bibliographies, but it's more of a check. So I'm just going to make sure that they have their information and that they're actually working on these things. So after a couple of days that they have these annotated bibliographies, I'm going to look and see how much they've got done. Thankfully, using Google, you can look at the revision history online. And so you're really able to figure out, okay, well, you didn't do anything these days, but you did a lot today, so I suppose you're good. But also the students who didn't do anything, maybe copy and paste things, that becomes really apparent when you use a revision history function in Google Docs. And that's pretty much it for the week. We're just going to really be hammering home secondary sources, annotated bibliographies, and we're really going to continue to help students narrow down their topics by using interventions and using the librarian. And as always, I'm going to make sure to put all the information that I talk about in the weekly calendar and my descriptions into the video description. So if you haven't done it yet, go down to the video descriptions. Check out the docs that I put down there. A lot of the stuff is I've created myself or I found. It's really good info, and it's really helped me organize my classroom, and it really helps keep students on track. All right, so the last thing, I want to show you a website that I have found that will really help you teach with primary sources. CK12 is an educational website that has English, math, science, and U.S. history work. The work that it does have for U.S. history is pretty limited, but what it does have is amazing. For example, U.S. History Sourcebook, which I'm showing you right now, has several different lessons in these different sections that I'm scrolling down and showing you. Each section has 8 to 10 lesson plans, and every single one is based off primary sources. Definitely give them a check out because they are really easy lessons to implement into the classroom and can really teach students how to use a primary source. All right, that's it for us at History Forge. Thanks for stopping by. As always, check out the social media down below in the video description. Check out the docs that we post. Feel free to contact me on any of the social media, and I hope you stop by again. Take care. One of my students made me a fidget spinner with my face on it, so I'm pretty happy about that.